أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا والطبيب ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين المكرمين الخيرين الفاضلين السيدين الصادقين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفدا، الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد. For the love of the Ahlul-bayt, please send a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank Allah first off for this opportunity to be amongst family and friends, some new faces as well. It's good to be back in Florida. And we thank Allah for this opportunity to be alive once again in this month of Ramadan, this month of Quran, this month of purification, this month where we get to recharge our batteries which have died out throughout the year. And I also thank the community here for the kind invitation. And hopefully through these next 15 nights, inshallah, we can benefit from each other. So tonight, because it's the first night, we'll keep it a bit short, right? Maybe 15, 20 minutes or so. And as they mentioned, any questions you send in the last 5 to 7 minutes or so, we'll try to answer if there's any questions there. Since it's an intro, it's the first night of Ramadan, it's typical to talk about fasting, the month of Ramadan in general, right? Now, when we talk about fasting in the month of Ramadan, there's different ways to approach it. There's the ways that we're used to, right? Where you kind of break down the different types of fasts, right? Since it's the month of Quran, it makes sense to start with the Quran as well, right? So let's look at the verse that Allah sends down that talks to us about fasting. Let's just remind ourselves about what fasting's for, why has Allah prescribed it for us, and how does fasting benefit us in this holy month? What's the reason that it's made wajib for us in this holy month? So you're all familiar with the verse in Surah Baqarah 183. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب عليكم من قبلكم كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Right? So all you mu'mineen, all those of you who have faith in Iman, fasting has been imprinted and written and prescribed on you, just like the people before you, so that hopefully you get taqwa. Okay. What is going on in this verse? So I'll summarize some of what the Mufassirin have said about this. If somebody comes to you and says, fasting is really not a big deal, right? So you're not eating for a few hours, right? It's not that difficult. Just don't eat, don't drink, right? What's so difficult about that? It's not a big deal. But in reality, that's not true. Fasting is a tough thing for us to do. We're breaking our normal physical daily habits. And to break routine is not an easy thing to do, right? Allah wants us to know that He acknowledges this. He knows it's difficult for us. So because He acknowledges that it's difficult, He wants to encourage us a little bit so that we find a bit more encouragement in performing these fasts. So when He starts off this verse, He wants to start off with some loving, kind words, right? Think about it. As a parent, if you want your child to do something that you know is difficult for them to do, Imagine you have to take them to get a vaccine, right? They have to get shots. Even adults can't handle that, let alone a child. So when you're sitting with them, in the room with the doctor, the needle's about to go inside, they're screaming, they're crying, you need to calm them down. Right? You want to let them know that I know that it's difficult, and I want you to know that I know it's difficult, but you need to get this done. So when you want to talk to them, you could address them by their name. You could say, Ali, you just have to get this done. Fatima, you have to get a vaccine, otherwise you're going to get sick. Or if you're a kind, loving parent, you're going to address them with kind, loving words. You might say, sweetie, baby, it's okay. I know it's tough. I know it's difficult. Don't worry about it. I'm here. Right? You're going to start off addressing them more kindly. Allah does the same thing. He starts off the beginning saying, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. He's addressing us saying, hey, you guys who have iman, right? He's giving us this sense of iftikhar, of pride. Like, the ones who have iman, I'm talking to you, right? He's doing this out of a sense of love. We have a hadith narrated from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. It says, لِذَّةُ مَا فِي النِّدَاءِ أَزَالَةُ تَعَبْ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالْعِنَاءِ. Because the pleasure that you get when you hear the nida, that call, that announcement from God, makes ibadat easy. It makes those difficulties of ibadat go away. Right? When someone addresses you in a kind manner, even the most difficult task goes away, right? Sometimes, even if, think about your own parents, if they ask you to do something, and it's something you don't want to do, or you know it's going to be difficult, if they just say, Ali, Fatima, just go and do this, okay, you'll probably still do it out of respect for your parents, but if they were to address you with kindness first, say, hey love, hey darling, hey sweetie, hey son, daughter, could you do this for me, please? Then your heart softens, you're more likely to do that, no matter what the difficulty is. It's almost like when you have a really loving child, right? And you want to give them that sense of pride. So let's go back to this vaccine, shot example. So you might say something like, who's my brave little boy? Who's my brave little girl? The shot won't be anything for you. Don't worry, it'll be over in a minute. Right? You'll address them like that. That's kind of the way that Allah's addressing us in this verse. He's saying, who's my little mu'min? You are. You're going to fast, aren't you? Yeah. Allah's talking to us like kids because we are His kids, right? So that's the first part of this verse. Allah starts off wanting to calm us down, saying, I know it's hard, but I'm approaching you with love. That's the first. The second. Now, let's go back to this idea of somebody getting a shot or a vaccine. So they're in the room, they're about to get it, so you've talked to them with loving words, but they're still finding it difficult. Right? They're like, I don't want to get the shots, I know it's going to hurt, I don't want to deal with it. So you say, you know what? Your older brother, your older sister, they got these same shots when they were younger, and they didn't cry. Oh, really? It's like, yeah, they got all their shots. They got shots every few months. They kept getting vaccines. Sometimes when we know that other people have gone through the same trials, then it makes it easier for us. So what does Allah say? He says, كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. This fasting is not just for you, Muslims, during that time. This has been happening before. Allah has prescribed this and made this wajib for people before, the Muhammadan Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. And now, if we're going to be, realistic about it, let's compare our fasting with their fasting. We get this nice air-conditioned building. Most of us will probably be sitting behind a desk, doing computer work, right? Maybe driving around, things like that. Who here is going out farming, 8-9 hours a day? Or who's a shepherd or a carpenter? Most people are not doing this kind of manual labor. But the people from before, min qablikum, those who came before us, they handled these long fasts in the desert while doing this manual labor. And those of us who have gone to Muslim countries and seen how they fast over there, it gives us a sense of humility. Right? We complain over here, 15 hours, 16 hours, like, oh, I can't handle that, it's too much. Then myself, in Iran, you see these individuals in the heat in Qom, which is, if you've been there in the summer, it's intense, right? It's over 100 easily, and it's dry heat, and it burns you away. You have people sitting there, I don't know how many hundreds of feet high, building skyscrapers while fasting, not a sip of water, not complaining even once. So then, who am I to complain? Me sitting in an office, a nice office in Morgan Stanley, typing away like, oh man, this is really, really tough. I'm used to my triple mocha, whatever, and now I can't have it. Right? So Allah's saying people better than you have done this same thing and it was tougher for them. So that's the second way Allah's trying to calm us down. The third and the final way that Allah wants to encourage us and make us understand that He knows that this is difficult is that He's going to give us what the end result and the conclusion will be. Okay, Allah, I'll do your fasting, but what am I going to get out of it? We're always looking for a prize. We want a reward. That's how we're functioning, right? That's how we function as human beings. So Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Maybe, just maybe, you'll get some taqwa. Maybe that consciousness of God will come in your heart. Perhaps you'll be a bit more aware of God in your daily life. Now, for those who are after taqwa, then of course this is it. This will seal the deal. They say, okay, so now all I have to do is not eat and drink and stay away from a few other things for some hours of the day, and there's a good chance that I might get taqwa. Okay, fine. Sign me up. Okay. So this is just a quick little summary of the tafsir of this verse. Now, there's obviously deeper points that we can discuss here. For example, some of the mufassirin, they talk about the details of which tribes or which individuals, which believers, which Christians and Jews had fasting from before. Well, because we just wanted to introduce the topic, details I don't think are very, very important for us. So I'll leave these discussions and I want to go and start to something maybe a bit more relevant and practical for us now. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So if you've been alive for, I don't know, at least a year or two, and you've been here for any Ramadan lecture, then you know that most speakers and scholars, they make the same points about Ramadan, right? And I'm sure your Shaykh must have addressed it in his final Jummah khutbah, right? Before he went somewhere else, right? When they talk about the Prophet's khutbah before Ramadan begins. And people, scholars and speakers, one of the first points that they always mention is these different types of fasts, or different types of people who fast, right? So it's either somebody who just fasts from food, meaning they only abstain from food and drink. It's a fast of the stomach. And the other group are those who fast, they have a fasting of the ear and the tongue and the eyes, etc., right? All of their limbs, their whole body fasts. So I think we've heard this before. So as a reminder for us, obviously, yeah, don't eat and drink during those hours. But if you can do a bit more, staying away from what's haram, that's obviously better. I want to break down this idea of different types of fasts in a different way, with your permission. So there's three groups I want to divide us into. The first are those who fast, or you want to call them cultural fasters. People who fast for cultural reasons. So what do we mean by that? These are basically I think the majority of Muslims, especially American Muslims, but I think Muslims worldwide. Because you were born and raised, because it's the culture, that's what everybody else is doing. You would look weird if you were to eat in the month of Ramadan, even if you don't really believe in religion, right? It might be a joke to you, and it is for a lot of people, unfortunately. You fast anyway, right? So they're just fasting, they stay away from food, they stay away from drink from those hours, but the same haram things they were doing before, they're still going to continue, right? The same things they were listening to before, they'll continue. The same language that they used, which is not so nice language, they'll still use that. The things which they shouldn't have been looking at, they'll still look at it. The relationships that they had from before, they'll still have those. So their life doesn't really change, except for that they're just not eating and drinking for a few hours. So these are cultural fasters, right? Now, it might seem like I'm condescending, right? And this is like, no, these are not a good group. But actually, I want to highlight that this is actually a very, very good thing. That this is something that we have to actually praise. Now, why is that the case? I want to share some statistics with you. Research has been done about the level of religiosity of Muslim Americans specifically, right? And unfortunately, it's not really good. I can't share everything, but I'll just give some statistics. So if you can guess in your minds right now, what's the percentage of Muslims you think, the ones people who claim to be Muslim, out of that, how many do you think actually pray 5 times a day? The statistics show that it's not more than 30-40% of American Muslims praying 5 times a day. That's a terrible number. That's pathetic. It's really, really bad. This is somebody who's, according to the poll, they say that I am a Muslim. I identify as a Muslim, but 40% of them just don't pray. They don't care for it. It's a really sad statistic. And it should wake us up about, We have to address some of these issues. The majority of our community may be like this. Right? Again, I don't know. I can't speak of this community specifically. But if we're going by statistics, there's a good chance that the majority of people here may not pray 5 times a day in their normal life, right? But now, what happens when we come to fasting? Is it the same or not? This poll shows that in the month of Ramadan, the amount of American Muslims that fast jumps to 80%. That's crazy. Double the amount of Muslims fast as they do pray. I mean, that's amazing. That's great. What does that highlight, though? So now, all this kind of negative, condescending, ideas we might have about, what people like to say, seasonal Muslims, they only show up in Ramadan, or they only show up in Muharram. Well, why are you, kind of cutting them down? At the very least, there's some part of Islam that they're still holding on to. They're still coming for the month of Ramadan. They're still doing this one wajib act. The month of Ramadan has this much power that even the most scoffer of Muslims is still trying to fast, for whatever the reason might be. The real reason is, if you look deep down, is that their fitrah, their divine nature, their soul, their spirit is still intact. There's still hope for them. That's why they see that there is this light in the month of Ramadan, and they're still refrain from food and drink at the very least. This is the power that the month of Ramadan has. So we shouldn't be negative towards these kinds of individuals. And if you happen to be one of those, you should see this as Allah calling out to you, saying, yes, maybe the way you were living your life for all these years wasn't the best. Maybe the only Islam you had was in the month of Ramadan. Fine. But because that bare minimum was there, there's so much more available for you. Now, how can we increase it? We'll discuss in the coming nights, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is the first group, right? Cultural Muslims or cultural fasters. The second group are religious fasters. These will be individuals who, obviously, they stay away from food and drink and all the other things that break the fast. But in addition, they try to increase their ibadat, right? They try to recite a lot of Quran. They try to recite du'as, ziyarah. They show up to the masjid. Maybe they sponsor an iftar. You're welcome, Suhail. They, for example, will give out sadaqah. And they'll try to stay away from certain haram things that maybe they were doing before. So this kind of individual, maybe they listened to haram music before. But in this month, they're like, you know what, for 30 days, I'll try not to listen to it. It's an effort, and it's a struggle, and it's a good thing they're doing. So they're trying to increase things. Now, the one thing that, for those of you who are on this kind of level, the one thing that you have to be careful here is, especially when it comes to increasing your level of ibadat, trying to do more things in Ramadan, reading Quran, reciting du'as, right? Like checking everything off a list, is not to get in that habit, actually. Sometimes you see, all right, there's this du'a on this night, check. This mustahab prayer, check. Just doing everything, check. But if you do that without any understanding, without any presence of heart, what are you really doing? You're just reciting a bunch of words in a language you don't know. How much benefit does it actually have? Okay, will you get thawab and ajr and reward? Yeah, you'll get a couple of good boy points, but is that what you're really looking for? Or are you looking for something more? So if you want a few points, good. It's a good starting point. But the advice, my humble advice for those on that level is, if you can do just a little bit of that, whether it's the Quran or whether it's this specific dua that you attach yourself with, whatever it happens to be, see if you can get a bit more meaning out of it, and it causes an internal change in you. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In one of his du'as in Sahifa Sajadiyah, one of the du'as which is made for the month of Ramadan, for the beginning, he says that Ramadan is Shahr al-Tuhur. It's the month of purifying and purification. Reading a few things, that's like the bare minimum, right? It's like maybe washing like your finger. No, you want a full-on cleansing, right? So take it the next step forward. And inshallah we can, if people want specific ideas, we can go through that in the next few nights. This then brings us to our third and final group. So we had cultural fasters, we had our religious fasters, and now the cream of the crop, which are the spiritual fasters. Now these are the ones who, obviously, the wajib part of it, that's fine. Ibadat part of it, all the mustahabat, they got that unlocked. But now they're looking for something more. Now what is that? For those who are in that cultural level, the cultural Muslims, the cultural fasters, they're trying to destroy their appetite, right? That's it. For those who are on that religious fasting level, they're trying to destroy their sins or trying to destroy their love of this world, something like that. But for those who are at that spiritual fasting level, for them, they're trying to destroy their ego. They're trying to destroy their nafs. They're trying to destroy their carnal, animalistic self. That thing that makes us stuck to this world, that makes us sin in the first place. Again, how do we get to this level? Inshallah, these tips will come in the following nights. So how do we go from here? The first thing we have to understand is our mindsets, first of all. How do we come into this month? There's basically a few different ways that we think about our lives, right? We have a very kind of physical way about things. So imagine a certain task or a project is presented to you, right? You're asked to do something. And it's a tough task. Let's say somebody asks you, for example, to help move some furniture, right? If it's something that, let's say it's a bit too heavy for you to do, you might say, well, I don't have the strength, right? I'm too weak. I can't do something like that. Or let's say early in the morning, a family member asks you for help, right? And a lot of us, early in the morning, without caffeine, you can't do anything. So you might say, listen, I don't have the energy for this right now. I can't do it. So the way that you try to solve this problem, this physical problem, is with a physical solution, right? If you feel weak, you say, like, eat something, you'll feel better, you'll feel stronger. If you're feeling tired in the morning, all right, have a cup of chai, have a cup of coffee. That's what we usually need for work, right? Our problem is a physical problem we're trying to solve with a physical solution. The question we need to ask ourselves is, in this month of Ramadan, is fasting trying to change our outlook on life, the way that we think about our problems? Right now, for those of us who felt weak for this fast, or those of us who are going to start tomorrow, inshallah, for those who you've got experience from before, when you feel that tiredness, what do you know that it is? What do you think it is? Doesn't everybody say, well, the minute I get that sip of tea, the minute I have some water, the minute I get that food, then I'll feel better, then I'll feel energized. I need food, I need water. Is that the right way to think or not? What we're going to show starting tomorrow night is that perhaps Allah is trying to change our mindset, our outlook, our ideology, and our view on reality through fasting. So we'll start with that, inshallah. And then the bigger question we're going to move on and show is, okay, Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. We're talking about fasting and we're talking about taqwa. Okay, well, how do you go from not eating and drinking to getting taqwa? Where's the connection there? Is me simply staying away from food and drink, all of a sudden going to make me a muttaqi individual and have consciousness and awareness? Or is there something deeper that I have to understand and something else that I have to perform? Inshallah, we'll start with that discussion tomorrow night. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we'll start, if there's any, I don't know if anybody even signed in and bothered with the questions and answers, or questions. While they're putting that up, I'll just quickly summarize what we talked about today. So what we said is that Allah tries to encourage us to fast through 3 different points. That verse in Surah Baqarah, verse 183, first Allah says that I'm addressing you with kind words. He's calling us mu'mineen, those who have faith. Then He says, I'm reminding you that people before you who have had more difficult time fasting, it was wajib for them too. And then He says that I want to show you the end result. The end result is that you're going to get taqwa if you perform this. Then we said that there's 3 different types of people who fast: cultural, religious, spiritual. The first level, cultural, are those who just stay away from food and drink. For those individuals, you should remind yourself that Allah is showing you have a higher capability and capacity. You just need to realize that. The second group, those who are in the religious fasting, what type of ibadat you need to do and what type of special actions in this doesn't matter so much. It's about connecting in a different way and having that presence of heart. And for those who are trying to be at that high level of spiritual fasting, how to destroy your ego, to destroy your animalistic self, and to be a true arif, go on the path towards Allah, those points about how to destroy your ego we'll talk about tomorrow night, inshallah. And what we'll show is how fasting can give us that connection back to Allah. Okay, one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, you mentioned that cultural fasting worship had its benefits, but that's not. But doesn't it also have the potential of it becoming harmful when one gets stuck to that level and averse to changing because of cultural attachment? So obviously, cultural practice and being what the Urafa and a lot of our scholars call being a Muslim, right? They say that there's different levels of Iman, or different levels of practice. The lowest level is being Muslim. What does that mean is that your practice is very little. You claim things with you say that I believe in God, I believe in the prophets, I believe in all these things, but your practice doesn't really show what you believe in, right? So it's the base level, what you call Islam. Iman is something higher. Iman is when you start showing your belief system through your actions. Getting stuck at any level is detrimental, right? So we talked about 3 different levels. This is just one way of looking at it. Obviously, even if somebody's stuck at that religious level, that's also a problem. Our goal, every single individual has that same goal, which is becoming insan kamil, being the perfect human being, right? Trying to reach that level that the Ahlul-bayt alayhimus salam, that they laid down for us. Right? They said, listen, you can reach a certain level as long as you say, according to the hadith, they say, as long as your days are not like your previous day, right? Every night, you're supposed to do your hisab, kitab, and all this, right? You account for yourself, you do your musharata, you do these conditions and check yourself to see, okay, how can I improve? What did I do good? What did I do wrong? What should I do now? And you're supposed to improve yourself every day. Again, not everybody, myself, I'll be the first to admit it. I haven't put that in practice myself. It's not an easy thing to do. Some people will have a list on their phone, or they'll have a diary next to their bed that they write these things down at the end of the night. It's something you have to actively go out and do. Being in this kind of, cultural fasting, worship area, it's going to be harmful, and people could be pushed away from Islam because of it. But obviously, for those individuals in that group, and this is a separate discussion, I'm not sure if we're going to have time for it. We have to ask ourselves, why are the majority of Muslims not following Islam? Fasting we said was an exception, right? Why are 40% of Muslims not praying? Why are the majority of sisters not observing hijab? Why are, we can go on and on, the different, muharramat and wajibat. People are not practicing Islam. Look at the statistics. They say that Islam needs to change. They don't want to change for Islam, they want Islam to change for them. So what do we do about something like that? Right? There has to be a discussion, there's research that's done. You have to see what exactly is the key to bringing individuals back to the fold of Islam. Now some will say that, okay, the methods are bring them to the masjid, let them hear a speech, for example, or bring them to Dua Kumail, whatever it happens to be. Kind of methods that worked before. Our ulama say that, especially in the West, this kind of methodology may not work. And I think through experience, first-hand experience, you all know that it's not working. Myself, I've been to various communities, and the typical kind of example, the typical kind of way Islam is taught and presented doesn't work for the average person here. Now you have, of course, these different generation gaps, learning styles different, you have differences in psychology, all these factors are there. Now, some individuals who, let's say maybe from where they were from, or maybe where they were raised, or the way they were wired, okay, maybe explaining God and proving like good and evil, all these points about Islam, maybe it's not super important. As long as their parents mention something, they learn a few things at madrasa, that's enough for them, fine. But this is my own humble experience, and I think you guys have seen this too. For especially people born and raised here, this is not working. This is not the case for them. I myself have had to deal with atheists in communities, atheist Muslims in communities, because they say, I was born and raised here, and I tried to get my questions about the proofs of God, His existence answered, nobody could answer it. I asked about the problem of good and evil, nobody could answer it. I asked why are women treated like XYZ in Islam, nobody could answer. All these different issues that they don't understand. They're trying to reconcile it with Islam and they can't do it. So you need to be able to somebody needs to be able to provide those answers, and there has to be a specific methodology for that. And that requires a lot of research. So let me stop there, right? Okay. And then we'll end with this. So considering most people will start fasting tomorrow, but one thing should we keep in mind when we start feeling the fast? For those of you who have a strong connection to the Ahlul-bayt, especially to the Shuhada of Karbala, our ulama advise that the only thing you need to do is when you start feeling the fast, you start feeling the thirst, is you put yourself in the position of Hazrat Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam and the river Furat. That's what you do. You imagine him at the river Furat lifting up a little bit of water, and imagine the thirst that he was feeling. If you can do that, maybe your heart will start putting itself back in the right idea. Now, maybe that will work for some of you, maybe it won't. Now, there's another component as well about feeling the fast. And this, I think we're going to have a deeper discussion. We might address it tomorrow, but just a few words about this is a lot of people do not know the kind of psychology, neurology, and biology and what goes in the scientific ideas about what happens when you fast. I'm not talking about the benefits of fasting, right? Those articles have been shared to death on social media. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what exactly is happening to you. What exactly are you feeling when you're feeling hunger? As I said before, are you feeling the need to eat or drink, or is it something else? Is it your body saying that I want some more food, I need some food, I need calories, I need protein, I need this and that? Or is it something else trying to get a message out to you? That we're going to talk about tomorrow night, inshallah. So I think we will end there. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.